It's really bright here. Thank you, Jed, for a perfect pronunciation of my surname, which is really hard to do for anyone who's not from Poland. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Christina and Michael and everyone who's putting this event on, because it's just amazing. And the quality of talks is mind-blowing. And I'm really humbled that I'm closing this conference, and I don't know if I can live up to the expectations of closing such a great conference, but I will do my best to do so. So, as Jed said, I'm Karolina. I'm from Kraków. I work for a software company called And Yet. I've been doing mostly design and development for 10 years now. I've studied human-computer interaction, which is probably one of the reasons why I will talk to you not about CSS and HTML and technology, but more of a soft skills, I guess. So the way I want to start this conversation when I'm just going to talk to you and you're just going to sit there is what is creativity? I feel like technology changes, new frameworks are introduced every single day or week or month. But technology can be mastered relatively easily. Well, when you think about a human being, we don't really know that much relatively about how our brains work. We know a lot of stuff about how our bodies work, but not how our brains work. So if you think about it, neuroscience is quite a baby. So what is creativity? How do I work? How do I work alone? How do I work with others? In a team, are people empowering me to be creative? Am I empowering myself to be creative? Is my work only valid if I get some external validation and appraisal of others? Or should I just do it myself and say, hey, great work, you're just the best person ever? So do I search it within myself or others? So let's start and try to define creativity, which I guess we wish that we could just click our fingers and, yeah, I'm in the creative mode right now, and it just totally works like that. Probably most of you are familiar with the concept and this particular image of the brain split into hemispheres, the left one and the right one, where each of those are in governance of separate processes. The left one is the smart one, the mathematical one, the logical one, and the right one is the emotional one and the creative one. Unfortunately, this image is quite settled in pop culture, and it's somewhat true, but on the other hand, quite false, as the fact that we use only 10% of our brains. Creativity cannot be assigned to just one part of our brain or whatever arbitrary part of our brain. It is a process that spans across all of our brains. So if we think about creativity and attempts on defining it, one of the first definitions of creativity was created in the 1920s by English philosopher. I'm just trying to give up on this word. Graham Wallace, that was his name, an English guy, and he wrote this book called The Art of Thought. And he thought that creativity can be divided in stages, which totally makes sense. And the first stage is preparation. So kind of figuring out what I'm trying to create, I'm into creating an, interactive app that lets me upload pictures. So initial interest in a certain topic and gathering information about it. The second stage is incubation, which might sound a little bit weird, but on the other hand is quite familiar when you think about it. It's internalization of a problem and kind of stepping away. So I have this vague idea that I want to do something with photography and uploading pictures, but I feel like I need a break now and I need to step down for a minute. Or I've been working for too long, so I need to go for a walk and clear my mind and take an inspiration break. That's what incubation is. It's supposed to stimulate new thoughts and I get ideas flowing. The third stage is elimination, which means the aha or like eureka moment, not without jumping out of the bathtub thing. When the idea or solution for a problem that we are searching for is discovered and is acknowledged, okay, I totally know how I'm going to solve this now. And the fourth stage, the last one, is verification, so actual practical execution of this idea that we had. So when we think about this definition, it looks, okay, like makes sense, but feels somewhat ambiguous and dated. I mean, it was quite a while ago. Fortunately, creativity was something that was quite interesting for many researchers and more scientists. So a little bit later on in history, James Melrose coined the 4P definition of creativity, which is also divided in stages. The first stage is person, which means me, my traits, my behavior, my value systems, basically everything that makes me the person I am. The second stage is process. Invention, learning, thinking, remembering, perception. So all the processes that are involved in creation and basically ideas being born. And press, which is my relationship with environment. So basically all of you right now. Environment, society, your audience when you are creating something. And product, which is tangible result of your creative activity, whatever you ended up making. So for me, that definition sounds a little bit more right for, I feel like, what creativity is. And the reason why I'm talking about defining creativity is because I want to talk about the person and press aspect of this definition, which means me as a person, the creator, and you as an audience of my creative activity. You as an audience, you as a critic of my work. So the title of the talk is Validate Me. So when you think about creating anything, writing an app, writing CSS, doing web design, print design, creating fonts, whatever you might be creating, making gourmet cheese or local beer, we seek validation. And we seek for this validation internally and in others. And our environment, as we saw in those definitions, affects the creative processes. When we think about how we interact with others in terms of creativity and validation as well, I think it's worth to go back to school and remember how we were feeling in the day when we were at school. And in my opinion, when you are at school, the educational institutions are building obedience models and kind of false hierarchies in a way, because they're promoting race for achievements. When you think about it, you get an A, oh, you're so great, you're doing awesome, you're such a great person, good kid, here's a lollipop for you. But if you're getting a D, then you're like, oh, no, something's going wrong, did you prepare? And if you get an F, you're just like utter failure, and failure is not acceptable in education. And it doesn't matter why you failed, maybe you were sick or you're not feeling well or whatever reason, but it just doesn't matter. Failure is unacceptable, and your efforts, whatever they were, are going to be belittled no matter for the reason of your failure. So when we think about it, that kind of means that approval is confused with love and worthiness. Okay. Good background for a really serious talk. We are raised to please and conform. We are raised to please and conform at school. We are raised to please and conform in our families. If you behave well, you're going to get those Legos finally. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not going to try to say something about parenting because I'm not a parent. But I feel like those tendencies can build up and can make us be really confused about approval. That also might mean that our internal self-worth and the feeling of self-worth is dependent on achieving. If I'm not achieving, I'm not worth anything. If I'm getting only F's at the exams or whatever, I'm just a terrible person, I might just give up on creating anything. So at the lowest levels of behavior, we are engaging in a phenomenon called impression management, which means that we are always thinking how we appear to others, even if there's no one around. We are always trying to be someone else and create an image of ourselves that's going to be seen by outside world that doesn't necessarily align with who we really are. And that's quite an uncomfortable place to be at. We are what we pretend to be, so we must be careful about what we pretend to be. We all are part of certain groups. Group of developers, designers, front-end developers, back-end developers, programmers, however you call it, cheesemakers. And the fear of banishment from a social group or circle sometimes might be even greater than I feel like it was centuries ago when we're running around half naked hunting boars, and when ostracism from a group meant certain death. Like, people actually get really depressed and get into really dark places when they're socially banished. And that's a very dangerous thing about validation. And that's a really important thing to remember, that validation can be withdrawn or withheld at any point if you're not the person who is giving it to yourself. Because someone else just gave it to you. Someone said, you did a really good job. And if you rely only on that external validation, that might get you quite miserable in the future if everyone will be like, you know what, I changed my mind, you're not really that cool. So the only validation and credit you are in control of is the one that you give yourself. Nobody really pushes creative people as much as they push themselves. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why some of us, maybe majority of this room even, experience or will experience impostor phenomenon. Impostor phenomenon is a syndrome that was coined in the 80s by Dr. Pauline Clance, and it's described as feelings of very severe inadequacy, conviction that our achievements are undeserved, and that we will be exposed as frauds. We basically cannot internalize success, and we are feeling a great dissonance between the person I am and the person I'm supposed to be, the person the society wants me to be. And a lot of people are saying that imposter phenomenon is something that is experienced only by smart people. And that is not necessarily true. I actually read a lot of research papers on imposter phenomenon to do my due diligence for this talk. And imposter phenomenon is something that at least 70% of population will experience at least once in their lifetimes, which basically means that I could probably say that 70% of this room had it or will have it soon. Imposter phenomenon can be caused or also might cause perfectionism. It might cause or might be caused by overworking, low self-esteem, or overprotective family environments. Initial imposter studies also showed that there is correlation between being an imposter and gender. It was more pointing towards women being more susceptible, although I think it's because it was only studies made on successful women. Did you make this? This is excellent. Thank you. I just don't think it's that good. What do you mean? It's great. You must have the creator's curse. When you're done making something, you improved while working on it. So you're never fully satisfied with your own work, so you make more. Then it goes on like this forever and ever. Isn't that neat? That's basically kind of a version of a definition of imposter syndrome. Imposters have really, really unreasonably low assessments of their performance, of themselves, and this feeling is even emphasized when they're around other exceptional people. So like, let's say this conference will totally emphasize my imposter syndrome. Recognition that we will get will reinforce the imposter syndrome and low feelings instead of bringing us peace. So when we think about imposter syndrome and how it works, it kind of seems a little bit vague. But there is a process called impostor cycle that actually describes how it works pretty well. So it starts with a task, an achievement-related task, and let's make it easy. This is me writing this talk. So at first I'm like, this is really cool. I'm really excited about writing this talk. It's great. This is going to be amazing. But then slowly those feelings start to fade, and I'm feeling a little bit worried and anxious and doubting myself. Am I going to perform? I don't know about this. Maybe I should just run or say I'm not going to make it. So when I actually get to work, two things will happen. I will either over-prepare, so read all the research papers. I will talk to psychologists about how that works, and I will do my slides for 2 weeks and write the super elaborate, 20 pages long talk. Or I will procrastinate to the very, very last second, and then I will freak out and just like, why did I even do it? Fortunately, finally, when I delivered the talk, there's a single moment of relief. I did it. I completed the task. It's great. The fear is gone, the anxiety is gone, the worry is gone. But unfortunately, when I think about it, and if I get positive feedback, I won't take it, I will reject it. And the reason why is because in the scenario of over-preparing, I will assign it to effort. Okay, but everyone can make an effort, so like, whatever. But in the procrastination scenario, I will assign it to luck, because I did it like 2 hours before, so it's not even good. I just lucked out, and people liked it because some random reason. So no matter the fact that I achieved the task, I had good feedback, I still feel really anxious, even more doubting my own skills, and possibly depressed. And the cycle is closed, and it begins again with another achievement task. So even despite whatever process I choose for my creative activity, I will feel really guilty about this process itself. I will deny my achievements, I will deny my own competence, and I will try to avoid failure at all costs. Outperforming others in the imposter phenomenon scenario will be my goal. Mediocrity is not acceptable. Performance infers my ability. If I'm not performant, I do not have any talents, I'm not able to achieve anything. So if I'm not pulling 10 all-nighters in a row, I'm just worth nothing. When we think about imposter syndrome, there is another really interesting tendency that I found, which is called confirmation bias. If any of you is not familiar with the definition of bias, bias is a tendency to think in one way, not necessarily in a way that's like the best option. So it's favoring one option over the others, usually with negative connotations. So confirmation bias, the way it works, is that if we have this super low self-esteem that led to imposter syndrome, or I have really low self-esteem because I just had imposter syndrome, if I hear bad feedback, if I hear good and bad feedback, the bad feedback will be the one that I remember. That's confirmation bias, because I'm already down and I'm already anxious and depressed. So even if all of you here will tell me, this was amazing, but this one person was like, you know what, this was like the worst talk ever. This is the one that I'm going to remember. And positivity and reassurance is totally unnoticed by my brain. Exactly like you're fantastic, you're great, you're genius, so handsome, but you could be a jerk. And the jerk sentence is the thing that will stick with you. So this is a bunch of negativity that can be going on in your brain that's trying to sabotage you. And in some cases, it might lead to a burnout, which you might be familiar with. Burnout is quite new to psychology. It was described in the 70s, and it was attributed mostly to social workers who were really exhausted because of all of the social interaction that they were getting. It's a syndrome of really severe physical and mental exhaustion that will draw us away from creating and from working. And it feeds of the lack of faith and ability to perform. We strive for perfection, and we are perfectly miserable. I was burned out several times in the past 5 years. The worst time that I got it was December last year, and I could not force myself to work for 4 weeks. And I think it was quite fortunate that it was December, and we had our regular end-yet Christmas break. And that kind of led me to be able to chill out a little bit and not guilt myself into not working for 4 weeks. But I've done everything, literally everything, to stay away from technology. Like, I would do anything else, watch all the TV shows on Netflix, I would draw, I would hang out with my friends, read fiction, practice lettering, whatever. It just like cannot involve my laptop. And I really resented technology, although I loved my job. And the reason why I'm giving this talk is because I know for a fact that so many people, probably so many of you, are or were struggling with burnout and with imposter syndrome and all of those negative feelings. And what I want you to do is, like me, try to overcome the negativity, the sabotaging that our brain is basically doing on us and our well-being. I feel like the way we do it is divided in somehow 2 levels: the personal level and the community or team level. So starting with myself, and I'm nowhere near being close to a person who should be giving psychological advice, but these are the things that I tried on myself, and it certainly improved the way I work creatively. And these were the things that we also, on the team level, we do regularly, and they greatly improved my creative process. So I hope that you will find something for yourself. So when you think about me as a person, or you as a person in a creative process, how do I try to overcome this negativity? Well, first of all, try to avoid setting unreal expectations for ourselves, and understanding that failure doesn't mean that you're not worthy, doesn't mean that you can achieve. It's just a necessary mean and sometimes painful road forward. I want more people creating for the joy of creating. I'm really bad at lettering, like really bad, but I really love it. And the joy of the process of just sitting with pencil and paper and drawing, scribbling letters is just so joyful for me. And I forget everything else when I'm doing it. And I would like every single one of you just to find an activity like that and create for the joy of creating, even then just like store it in your drawer, don't show anyone, whatever. Try to let go of being super judgmental of yourself. And when you're thinking that, when you're having those negative feelings, I just suck at this job, I'm just like nowhere near this X person, I just should just quit everything in technology and CSS and design, I'm just terrible. The feelings, those negative feelings that we are experiencing, the fact is that so many other people are experiencing the same feelings, even maybe the same moment on the world. You're just not realizing it because you're just thinking about yourself. I'm experiencing these feelings and I'm alone with it. I'm just like, ugh, I just want to just lay down on the floor and hide. That is not true. And the phenomenon that's behind it is called pluralistic ignorance, where you're thinking that everyone else is acting in a way on the outside, basically showing what they feel. So if I asked right now the question of how many people had clinical depression, and no one would raise their hand, despite the fact, like, let's say 20 people had it, but it's like kind of a sensitive topic, so no one wanted to raise their hand. I would think, okay, so like I might be alone with that because no one raised their hand, and that is not true, and that is pluralistic ignorance of me thinking that everyone is acting the way they're thinking and feeling. You can't improve the things you love if you never allow them to be imperfect. We are all in progress, we are not perfect, and we won't ever be. And so is our work. So does it mean that like I shouldn't be living because I'm not a perfect person, or I shouldn't be creating because my creations aren't perfect? No, that is not true. And they're perfectly worth our time. Perfectionism is anti-creation, and iteration is where creativity grows and blossoms. And it's really important to remember that it's okay to be wrong. When someone is criticizing you, do you ever stop and for a minute when you're getting angry and try to think, why am I getting angry? Am I getting angry because this person is just being mean, or am I angry because someone is questioning my work, or because I feel like they're attacking me, not my work? You're not your idea, and if you identify too closely with your idea, you will take offense when they are challenged. Your work reflects you, but it'll never become you. So switching to the them, since we talked about you, switching to the them scenario of overcoming negativity. We all work at teams. We work at companies, and even if we are freelancing, we're just talking to people and getting feedback on Dribbble or wherever else. So others are just super omnipresent in our lives, professional lives and creative lives. So how do I fight this negativity? Ask for feedback. Give honest feedback and endorse true honesty in giving the feedback. Strive for constructive criticism, and I don't like it is not constructive criticism. Take and assign responsibility, but don't create fear-driven environments that will foster people hiding around corners, and they won't take any risks because they will be, no, I'm afraid because I will fail. Trust in people not only to accomplish what they are assigned to accomplish, but also when they fail, that they will stand up from this failure. There will always be trolls and people who will bully you. Always. And there will be people who will criticize your work. Especially the more visible you get, the more followers you get, the more recognition you get, the worse it gets. I really like what Paul Jarvis said. He calls his audience his rat people. And it's really funny because my surname means rat in Polish, so that's funny. He calls rat people his audience because they understand his work, they appreciate his work, and they appreciate him as a person. And that's what I would like you to do. Find your audience and create for them and for yourself. And avoid conflict. But set boundaries to speak up when someone is offensive. Being nice does not mean that you will let people walk over you. And avoiding conflict does not mean speaking up for yourself. Another thing to remember about conflict, especially on the internet, on Twitter, wherever else where you're putting your work at, is that if someone is arguing with you, and if you give them really constructive arguments, trying to win with them, they will buck up, and they will totally be more sure about their argumentation. Why? It's all science. It's called the backfire effect. So you might give them the best reasoning ever that totally makes sense, and you are right, and you should even win, but you won't, because it will only confirm their beliefs. Because for our brains, myths and whatever we think is true is just more cognitively approachable and attractive. When we are thinking about communities and teams, it's very hard to do, but it's really important to try to empower others, especially people who are just beginning, to share their work, empower them to be better. because that was you once. And stop judging. Even if their work is really objectively bad, that was also you once. So instead of be judging and negative about their work, just try to help them instead. And if you are the person who is beginning, ask for help. It's really not that hard. And if you're thinking, oh, this person is too famous, I just cannot ask them, they will never reply to me, I'm just like not on the same level. No, that is not true. You should reach out and ask for help. And many, many really visible people are trying to offer office hours. They will even go for coffee with you and offer you really good advice. So I know it's a shameless plug, but I'm not feeling guilty about it. The way I want to close this talk about creating really good environments for your creativity, for yourself, and for your team is a video introducing Andiet where I work. And I hope this will work.
Andiet is high fives and hugs and collaboration.
Andiet is where people come to do what they love every single day.
Andiet is a group of creative people who are set out on making not only the web, but the world a better place.
Andiet is about building trust in people working in their passion.
Andiet is a collection of people, a club really, where we get to do things that we enjoy doing.
Andiet is a place where we can fail, where we can grow, where we can be challenged, and we can celebrate each other's successes.
Andiet is a place where we get paid to do the work that we probably willingly do for free.
Andiet to me is the trust and freedom to build something amazing.
Andiet is a software company with the goal of making the world a better place, one person at a time.
The only way that you can define Andiet is by what people are doing. And what everybody does is so diverse that it's hard to come to a singular conclusion.
Andiet is a place to be supported and trusted without exception.
What isn't Andiet?
Andiet is a place where a bunch of people are together trying to grow together as people.
Can I go? Can I seriously?
Now you can go.
Thank you. Get this thing off me.
Andiet is a place where unicorns go to play together.
I got nothing.
Blah, 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 blah.
All right, you ready?
Okay. Oh, you're ready.
So the takeaway from this is for you to find a place like I found. I've never felt more empowered than I feel working at Andiet. And I want all of you to forget for a second the technology aspect, fighting about promises versus callbacks, stylus over SaaS, or X technology over Y technology, and try to take care of yourself and others around you and try to be empowering to build a better web together. Thank you.